I'm Gab. He's Jules. Blue skies over West London. In fact, it's full on summer, Jules.
Yes, it is.
Look, hey, the league season is over. In fact, the football season, there's only 2 games left that matter.
Exactly.
There's a final next Saturday and something. And then on Wednesday, of course, the Conference League final, which I am hyped and for. Vamos Rayo! Or Crystal Palace. I love you both equally. We have some final verdicts, some shocks in the Serie A race of Champions League. Milan and Juventus. Juventus less of a shock, given where they were in the table, but Milan being out is a big news. Real Madrid. We're going to have a contested election for the first time since 2004. Or first time Florentino's contested since 2004. But let's start in the Premier League. Look, I know there was some weird machination whereby Liverpool might have ended up missing out on the Champions League of 10 billion stars aligned. It was really more about farewells. That didn't happen. Chelsea missed out on Europe, which might be a good thing from their perspective. The big story is Spurs not going down and West Ham staying up. Now, this is also somewhat telegraphed because Spurs would have had to screw it up at home and lose and West Ham win. Didn't happen. In that sense, it was anticlimactic, Jules.
Yeah.
But it's still relevant. 2 consecutive seasons of finishing 17th and relevant too, I think, for West Ham, who we can joke about this, but West Ham by revenue and budget are sort of somewhere between 7th and 10th on the table. This should not be happening to them.
No, and they won the European trophy as well 4 years ago. So the decline from then to now, the championship and, playing in Europe away to going to, I've got nothing against Oxford United, but that's the team that West Ham are going to face next season. Is quite incredible when you think about it. And for Spurs, even if it felt a little bit tense at times, once they took the lead especially, it felt okay. But some of the scenes before the game of the fans arriving and then the bus arriving with the players in it, to the relief clearly at the end was great to see. And even from a De Zerbi point of view, because that was, like he said, the target, and he got to that target. Although it looked like he was running on the pitch at the end to celebrate, but then realized that I can't over-celebrate because he's still only staying up where they should have stayed up a long time ago. So that was a target.
Some people criticize them for the celebrations. Did you see Vicario jumping on top of him? I'm like, you're going to break little De Zerbi, man. But
then it's, when you felt so much pressure and tension, I think he's right.
In the context, it completely makes sense. It completely makes sense. As long as you're ready to get back to work.
Yeah.
And he said he's ready to get back to work. I thought I don't know if he was just sort of post-game, he's so elated, so emotional, that he wasn't really thinking about what he was saying, or maybe he'd forgotten some of his English in the south of France. But he said something that, I don't know. I just saw the headline, then I read the piece. I saw the context. I'm like, this is kind of contradictory. Because he says something like, I've got the actual quote. I remember it. He says I have 10, 11, 12 players who are good players and good people. We don't need to change too much. But then we have to change, effectively, we have to change the rest of the squad and bring in first-team talent. I'm like, bro, that's not going to happen. You're not going to ship 15 guys out and bring in 15 new guys. Sure. And I got a little bit ominous. Is this a signal to the club? Because we've seen this before at Brighton, to some degree at Marseille, about transfers. And that should worry you, I think, if you're Spurs, because this time last year, Spurs had 2 directors of football, right? Johan Lange and Fabio Paratici. Fabio Paratici left. Johan Lange is still there. There's no indication he's going to leave somehow. Also, a year ago, you had an executive chairman in Daniel Levy, who was very experienced, not always very good, but very experienced, very hands-on in the transfer window. Now, Levy's gone as well. You've got the wonder kid running things.
Yeah, Vinay.
Yeah, but I don't want Vinay doing transfers,
exactly.
right?
No, I don't think he wants him either. He wants it either.
I was talking about the owner's kids.
Yeah.
Should this be worrying? Is this a sign? Is this just a Zerbi misspeaking?
It's just, on the Zerbi quote, I think the most telling of the quote is the good people bit. Because
talking about Jet Spence.
Well, I don't know who, but certainly in his mind, there are good persons in that dressing rooms and bad persons. And I don't know who the bad ones are. I don't know if, Christian Romero, who was there in the end, but
after everybody said he wasn't going to be there.
Well, I think he hadn't planned to go, but because of the backlash, he decided to go.
I like to think he left and then came back. He arrives at Ezeiza and says all right, where's the next flight back to London? His phone blows up.
And that's it, because if De Zerbi thinks that they're bad eggs in that dressing room, then that's a lot of work on top of the tactical stuff and personal stuff to do.
All right, Jules, I want us to get into kind of the task ahead for the club, which is massive, right? Because you don't finish 17th 2 seasons in a row by coincidence. When I heard De Zerbi talk about bringing new players and quality and whatever, I was thinking about it. Is talent really Spurs' problem? And I would argue that the reason they finished, first of all, I think in many ways, obviously, the reason they finished 17th last year was I don't think the coach did a great job in the second part of the season, but mostly the Europa League run took a ton out of them and they made a decision and the vibe went the way it did. This season, if I had to point to it, I would point to 3 things. Not lack of talent would be like 6th or 7th on the list. It would be injuries. It would be wrong coaching appointments and bad coaching appointments. And it would be oh my goodness.
Attitude.
No, squad construction.
Yeah.
Squad construction. I mean, attitude I would file under the coaching. I think that came in, right? The way this team was built, right? And when I look at this, injuries, there's probably not much you can do about. I know you're more medically adjacent with me. I always have to laugh at a team gets a bunch of injuries and they start questioning the medical staff and they start questioning. Right, with injuries, we just don't know. We don't know. Sometimes
they changed 3 times their medical staff, so they must think something is wrong somewhere.
Yeah, they've thought a lot of things which turned out not to be true, as we've seen in the last year. So from the outside, we just can't judge it. We can just say they've had a lot of injuries, and obviously they felt it was a medical staff issue.
Yeah.
In terms of the coaching decisions, I don't think Thomas Frank worked out at all. And I think a lot of us wanted Thomas Frank to succeed because of the story and coming from Brentford and poaching most of the Brentford guys that he took with him. But I didn't see any side of the football that he played at Brentford at Spurs, other than sometimes those games when Brentford would play a big club and they would just clam up defensively.
Yeah, set pieces. That's what he did.
And some set pieces, yeah.
That's the only thing, yeah. He made them so good on set pieces.
So that brings me to squad construction. And as of right now, they have 8 central defenders on their books, if we count Vuskovic, who obviously had a very good season at Hamburg, and Takai. That's absurd.
Yeah. But you bought some for the future. So, if the rest was a bit better, the 8 centre-backs would not bother
What
me
about
too
the
much.
27 wingers?
And what about the lack of creativity, which we already mentioned last summer by saying, Xavi Simons, that's a lot, considering Kulusevski and Maddison were injured. There was a lot of pressure put on Xavi Simons to be the creator, and that he never was, really.
And also, Kulusevski, fine player, but he's not necessarily the creative guy in the same way. Like Kulusevski maybe might go more in the Kudus bucket. It was another guy who's been injured.
Yeah, Kudus,
who clearly they were banking a lot on. I'll go to the center forward position, right? With all due respect to Richarlison, it seems crazy to me that down the stretch you have to play Richarlison as your center forward because Solanke is either injured or you don't like him or the coach doesn't like him or he's too big or this is just bad.
Yeah.
These are bad decisions that were made at the top, maybe to satisfy one manager, maybe another manager. Does anybody come out and say, hey, I thought Igor Tudor was the right choice for this and that reason. It clearly didn't work out. I would love it if one person who was accountable came out and said something like that.
Yeah.
Or one person came out and said, oh, we really could have supported Thomas Frank more, or we don't think Thomas Frank was a good fit, or whatever, right? It's obvious that you don't, but you explain the reasons why, and I think that's how you move forward. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what needs to be done. And the one thing that would worry me if I'm a Spurs fan is De Zerbi's personality, because I think it needs to be handled a certain way.
Yeah.
What happens if he loses faith quickly in Lange or Vinay or the people above him?
Well, then he will clash. We know that happened before with.
And then it's another 17th place. Then he walks in November.
But that's why I think the summer is huge for them in making the right decisions everywhere, and that includes. I mean, I think Johan Lange is going to stay, but they're looking for another guy to come and help him. I don't know if that's the answer or not, but certainly in terms of the squad that we mentioned and transfers, because we could look at the squad and let's say 11 players. Who are the good 11 ones, both football-wise and as a person? So you can
You struggle a little
Well, yeah,
bit.
no, but you would think that's why and also I never like managers doing things like that, because I think if you're a player now and your future might be uncertain, you look at it and say, okay, am I in the 10 or not? Am I part of the 11?
And does he think I'm a bad person?
Yeah, exactly. And then what does that mean? And what if you stay? Because got a contract, because you haven't moved, because the offers that came for you were not, you didn't fancy them or not, you're going to stay not knowing if he really likes you or not. You might stay and he doesn't like you because he doesn't think that you're good enough anyway. I think for him to come out with something like that was not sure that was the right thing to say right now.
It's also bad when you start introducing the human element is very important, right? You have to have team. You're a team. You sometimes have players who don't like each other. We all know the Andy Cole, Dwight York story, right? But I think you have to frame it when there is conflict, not as like this guy's good and this guy is a bad guy, but more like these two guys don't get along, but they're such great professionals. They love Manchester United so much, in the case of those two, that they're going to make it work. When you start framing it as good people versus bad people are going to speculate who are not the good people.
Yeah, of course.
And they will immediately speculate that he's talking about, above all, Romero and Jed Spence, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Which in some ways is also unfair. There's reasons for both, but Jed Spence is out there playing. So he can't be that bad a guy, right?
Yeah, but right now you have to play who you can. It's not like if he has a million choice either. So
But he does have other players available to him. Like if he was sort of
yeah.
So there's decisions to be made there. I think this is what you have with Zerbi, and that's why it's very important to know how to handle the Zerbi. And I go back to what I often say. Some people can be the face of the team. I'm very comfortable having Jurgen Klopp as the face of my team. And, for example, having everybody hide behind him. Or Pep, for that matter.
Yeah.
How many times did we hear Cheeky Begiristain speak in public over the last 10 years? Zero, right? So De Zerbi is not somebody who can be the only voice out there. I think we learned that. I think the history shows that. And so I think you need to modulate that a little bit. With regards to West Ham, we talked about how quickly they descended with the budget they have, with the money that was spent. I don't want to just say like bad use of resources, but kind of was bad use of resources above all, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think Graham Potter was the wrong appointment anyway, and then you take probably too long to get rid of him. Some of the recruitment, from Fulkrug to others was difficult. To lose Kudus and not really replacing him either. Paqueta leaving too. I think it's difficult. 14 years in the Premier League. It's a long time. And I think because Don was saying the other day, because they've gone down before and gone back up pretty much straight away, they will know how to handle that. I'm not sure. I hope so for them, but let's see.
I'm really curious about Jarrod Bowen and kind of what happens there, because I think even when West Ham were bad, as they have been, I think he was frighteningly consistent.
Yeah.
And consistently good. In fact, I think he and Mateus Fernandes, who I obviously like more than you do.
You do.
But
no,
still.
I like him, but you put him like so high. I was just like, okay.
I think they were two of the positives out of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
As was Disasi after he came in.
Yeah, so.
But Mateus Fernandes has been relegated before, so he can come back, and he's young. If you draw Bowen, I don't know. I don't know how you play this.
So he loves the club, really. But there's offers on the table already. So if he wants to leave, he can leave. I liked yesterday him saying that he wants to stay to bring them back up straight away. But he's not getting any younger. His wife certainly wants him to stay. It's a tough one. I think it would be a sacrifice. Don't take it in a bad way, West Ham fans. But I think it'd be a huge sacrifice from him to stay. But I think he loves the club so much that I can see him staying. If I'm Liverpool, I go all in to replace Salah with Bowen. And I know the age is he's slightly too old, I think, for that kind of next 5-6 years kind of thing. But still, I think he would be perfect for them. But yeah, it's a tough call for him to do, I think. If you imagine having the club that you really love, where you feel at home, that you're the captain, everything. But the championship against, let's say it doesn't have to be Liverpool, but a Premier League top 6, top 7 club, I don't know.
I have a solution.
Go on.
That I think would work out well for everybody. instead of spending all that money on Anthony Gordon, Jarrod Bowen goes to Bayern Munich on loan for a season. They pay $5 million or whatever it is, might be more than that, loan fee. They get Gordon next year, or whoever they want for the wing next year. He gets to go play in the Champions League, do all these things, and a year from now, when West Ham return to the top flight, he comes back.
The idea is for him to stay at West Ham to bring them up, not to leave and come back if they back up.
No, but that
So
would
the
no, but you
solution-
get a lot of
yeah,
money
but-
back for that, right?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
and then I think they would rather have somebody who plays on the left than on the right at Bayern too. But yeah,
Well, to be fair though, next season, I mean, they're ready Luis Diaz down the left. Like, you can move your pieces around.
You
but
can
not-
move your pieces
You can put
around.
Leonard Carl on the left.
It must be hard though, I think, like the dilemma, because you have to take everything in consideration, the family side of it. I think as financially, obviously, there's clauses in the West Ham contract. His money will go down naturally, and if he leaves, he can get not a signing on fee, but certainly get a pay rise somewhere, especially if it's a top club. It must be really difficult. I don't envy these kind of decisions, to be fair, that a lot of players, not just Jarrod Bowen, but a lot of players have to do through their career.
Yeah, and I think in his case specifically, somebody's been so identified with the club. And then there's broader implications too. I mean, for those who don't know, West Ham play at the former Olympic Stadium. I think it's now called the London Stadium or something imaginative like that. There's going to have implications for taxpayers as well. Because
You said that, I didn't see this story, but you said there would be.
yeah, it's like a public company that owns them, and they have to pay a certain amount to the government, whatever. I think the Premier League are just a poor league without West Ham because this is a club that has such an identity. I wonder with the owners, I wonder if people are going to be held to account. Obviously, Karen Brady leaving earlier this year. It really has been a bit of a vertical slide, and I kind of feel that people spend money. You can't blame a lack of resources on this. You just have to look at poor decisions that were made, and I think that's the heart of it. Maybe also sacking the manager in September to bring in Nuno. Also, that was another major boo-boo. Yeah,
To bring Nuno in.
yeah. Well, no.
no.
To make a change in September.
Oh, yeah. He improved them, but yeah, it was probably not start the season with somebody different than Potter was wrong. Yeah, definitely.